My name is Nora. I'm an artist, and today I turned 35. But only 8 months ago, I didn't even remember that. Not my name, not my age, not who I was. I didn't remember the faces around me, or whether they were strangers or the people I loved most. 8 months ago, I woke up in a hospital bed. My body felt heavy, as if I'd been carved out of stone. My right leg was wrapped in plaster. Purple bruises bloomed along my arms and ribs. There was a faint smell of antiseptic and something sweeter, maybe lilies or maybe the perfume of the woman in the next bed. When I opened my eyes, a man was sitting beside me. His face lit up like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. His eyes shimmered, full of tears, and for a moment I thought he might be an angel. Then he whispered, voice trembling, "My love, are you okay?" I blinked at him. My lips felt dry, my throat rough. "Who are you?" I asked. Something flickered across his face. Surprise first, then something else I couldn't name. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a gentle smile. "The doctor said this might happen," he murmured. "It's me, your fiancé, Ryan." The word fiancé felt foreign in my mouth, as if it belonged to someone else's story. He reached for my hand and held it between both of his, warm and careful, like he was afraid I might break again. He told me I'd slipped and fallen down the stairs in our home, that I'd been unconscious for 2 days, that he hadn't left my side. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe anything that would make sense of the chaos inside my head. But everything was blank. No flashes of memory, no fragments of color or sound, not even a sense of recognition in the man's face. I remember nodding slowly, pretending I understood. But inside, I was hollow, lost. The kind of lost that feels infinite. The doctor entered soon after, a tall woman with kind eyes and a tone that tried to sound confident. She said my injuries were healing well. The memory loss, she explained, was likely temporary. It might take weeks, maybe months for things to return. I would remember, eventually. She smiled reassuringly. Ryan didn't. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the muscles of his jaw tighten. For a moment, his expression changed, barely noticeable, but enough. It wasn't worry for me, not exactly. It was something more brittle. Fear? Frustration? Maybe he was scared that it would take so long. Maybe he didn't know how to handle a fiancé who couldn't even recognize him. That was what I told myself anyway. But a small voice inside me, faint, trembling, whispered that maybe it wasn't me he was afraid for. Maybe it was me he was afraid of. Ryan came to see me every day after that first morning. He always brought something, a book, flowers, sketches he said I'd made. He spoke softly, with a practiced patience that made me feel both comforted and trapped. He told me stories, fragments of a life that sounded beautiful, maybe even perfect. How we'd met 5 years ago in a small gallery in Lisbon where my art was displayed. How he'd stood in front of one of my paintings for half an hour, then asked me to coffee and never left my side after that. How we'd traveled to Italy together, to the south of France, to Prague. He described the colors of the sunsets we'd seen, the places we'd stayed, the smell of old paint and sea salt on my hair. He painted our love like a masterpiece, every word precise, controlled. He said we were planning a spring wedding, small, just us and a priest. "You chose the dress already," he smiled once, brushing his thumb over my hand. "You looked like you were made of light." It all sounded like a story I should have wanted to believe, but I didn't feel anything. Not the echo of memory, not even the warmth of recognition. Just emptiness. One afternoon, I asked about my family, about the people who should have come running to the hospital, who should have been there when I opened my eyes. He hesitated before answering, eyes flickering to the window. "Your parents passed away years ago," he said quietly. "You haven't spoken to your relatives in a long time. It was complicated. They didn't understand your choices." He gave a sad smile, the kind that begged for sympathy. I pressed on. "And my friends?" That smile vanished. His fingers tightened around the cup he was holding. "Your friends aren't part of your life anymore," he said, voice lower now. "They tried to take credit for your work, for your paintings. You were devastated. You cut them off." I waited for more, but he didn't elaborate. When I tried to ask again, he gently touched my shoulder. "Let's not talk about that now, love," he said. "It's a difficult subject for you. We'll go over everything when you're stronger." That was the end of it. According to Ryan, I'd had a perfect life, one I'd built with him, one filled with love and laughter and art. He said we were happy. He said I was happy. But I couldn't remember any of it. And guilt started to creep in. When he kissed my forehead, I felt nothing but awkwardness. When his fingers brushed my cheek, I had to stop myself from flinching. When he said I love you, I answered with silence. Once, after I turned my head away from a kiss, he looked wounded. "I understand," he said finally, his smile faltering. "You'll fall in love with me again. I'll make sure of it." The way he said it, soft, certain, sent a chill down my spine. A few days later, the doctor said I could leave. My leg was still in a cast, and I couldn't walk without crutches, so Ryan took care of everything: discharge papers, medication, my few belongings. He helped me into a wheelchair, wheeled me through the bright white corridors and out to the parking lot. The air outside smelled like rain. I hadn't felt it in weeks. He opened the car door, folded the wheelchair, and helped me inside with a gentleness that almost felt forced, too careful, too rehearsed. I bit my lip as pain flared in my leg. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded. "Just stiff." The drive was quiet. Gray skies, streets glistening after the rain. Everything looked like it belonged to someone else's life. When the car finally stopped, Ryan turned to me and smiled. "We're home." Ryan came around to my side and opened the door. "Let me help you," he said, slipping his arm under mine. I tried to put weight on my good leg but couldn't manage the step down. He lifted me effortlessly, his arm tight around my waist, and carried me inside. The hallway smelled of fresh paint and something faintly chemical. Inside the apartment, there was almost nothing, just a couch, a table, 2 chairs, and a few unopened boxes. No paintings, no photographs, no trace of the life he'd described. "This doesn't look like home," I said quietly. Ryan set me down carefully on the couch, crouched beside me, and smiled in that calm, almost teacher-like way. "I thought a fresh start might be better for you. The house has stairs. I didn't want you to remember the fall and panic. This place is safer. But maybe if I see the house, I'll remember faster," I argued. "My studio, my things." He shook his head gently. "Later, Nora. When you're stronger. I promise we'll go back soon." His voice was soothing, but his eyes didn't match the warmth of his tone. I wanted to push, but I was exhausted. My leg throbbed, and every muscle in my body begged for rest. So I nodded. "Okay, just for a little while." He smiled again, kissed the top of my head. "That's my girl." The phrase made my stomach twist. He helped me to the bedroom, a small, plain room with white sheets and a single lamp. I eased myself onto the bed and pulled the blanket over my cast. Ryan lingered in the doorway. "I'll stay with you tonight," he said. My chest tightened. "I think I'd rather sleep alone," I said quickly. "Just for now. I'm not used to sharing a bed again." He blinked, clearly taken aback. For a moment, something hard flickered across his face. Then his expression softened into that practiced gentleness. "Of course," he said. "You need rest. I'll take the sofa." He leaned over, pressed a kiss to my forehead, and whispered goodnight. But as he straightened, his eyes met mine. And there it was again. That quick, sharp glint that didn't belong to a loving fiancé. A look too intense, too cold, gone as soon as I noticed it. When he closed the door behind him, I lay still, listening to the faint sound of his footsteps retreating down the hall. I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards made me tense. I stared at the ceiling, my leg throbbing beneath the cast, my heart beating too fast. This was supposed to be my home, my life, my love. But as I lay there in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't come home at all. I'd been brought somewhere I was never meant to leave. The next morning began like something out of one of the stories Ryan used to tell me about our perfect life. He brought me coffee in bed, just the way he said I liked it, strong, with too much milk. The smell filled the small apartment, rich and comforting. He kissed my forehead, smiling like he hadn't slept a minute but didn't care. He moved around the kitchen easily, humming while he cooked scrambled eggs and toast, a soft tune I almost recognized. For a moment, everything felt almost normal. He was radiant, relaxed, the kind of man every nurse at the hospital had praised, so patient, so devoted. Then I noticed his phone. It was lying on the counter beside the kettle, the screen lighting up for a second before going dark again. Some part of me stirred. Curiosity, instinct, something. I didn't remember my past, but I knew this. I had a phone too. "Where's mine?" I asked casually, keeping my tone light. I could maybe check old photos, messages. Might help my memory. The change in his face was immediate. His smile faltered. The warmth drained from his expression like color from a fading photograph. "It broke," he said quickly. "You dropped it when you fell. It's being repaired." "Oh," I said. "When will it be ready?" He hesitated, a second too long. "Soon, I'll check on it." Something about the way he said it, careful, deliberate, set off a spark of unease. "How did it happen?" I asked after a pause. "The fall, I mean. You said I slipped, but where exactly? On the stairs?" He looked up from his plate. "Yes, the stairs." "Did I trip? Was it wet?" He pressed his lips together, his eyes flickering toward the window. "You lost balance, I think. You were in a hurry. And then what?" "Nora," he said, voice low now, almost weary. "You don't need to think about that. It'll come back naturally." "But," he cut me off too quickly. "I really have to go. There's something I need to take care of." He leaned over, kissed my forehead again, a habit that felt more like punctuation than affection. And then he was gone. The apartment fell into silence. The day stretched endlessly. The air was stale, and the walls seemed to close in. My leg throbbed whenever I moved, so I stayed mostly in the wheelchair, rolling from one end of the room to the other just to feel movement. The boxes in the corner caught my eye again. They'd been there since the first day, stacked neatly, untouched, as if waiting for permission. I hesitated at first, but boredom and curiosity won. I wheeled myself over, awkwardly pulling one down. Inside were folded clothes, mostly women's. Dresses, scarves, a loose sweater that smelled faintly of lavender and paint. The moment my fingers brushed the fabric, something shifted inside me. It wasn't a memory, not a clear one, but a feeling, an almost physical recognition. The texture, the weight of the fabric, the faint stain of color on one sleeve, it was mine. I didn't need proof, I just knew. When Ryan came back that evening, he looked exhausted. His eyes darted to the boxes, then to me. "I remembered something today," I said carefully. His body went still. "What?" I reached into the box, held up the sweater. "This. It's mine, isn't it?" He exhaled, relief or tension I couldn't tell. "Yes," he said finally. "Of course it's yours." "I remembered it myself," I said. "When I saw it, I just knew. Maybe we should go home, Ryan. Being surrounded by my things could help me remember faster. My studio, the house. Maybe it'll trigger something." He didn't respond right away. His eyes moved across my face like he was searching for something. Then quietly he said, "It's just logical that it's your clothes, Nora. Whose else could they be?" He smiled, but it was tight, forced. "And I told you, I'm afraid the house could be traumatic. You fell there. It's too soon." I could tell there was no use arguing. His voice was final, calm in that way that left no space for protest. So I nodded, pretending to understand. But inside, a decision was forming, quiet and sharp. If he wouldn't listen, I'd find another way. The next morning, I started acting differently, softer. Over breakfast, I told him that I dreamt about our wedding, about the dress he said I'd already chosen. Lace, off-white, light as air. I said I wanted to see it again. He looked up from his coffee, eyes warming with something almost like pride. You remembered that? I smiled faintly. Not exactly. I just want to see it. I think it would help. Later, when he helped me move from the bed to the chair, I added quietly, I miss our bed. Maybe if I see it, I'll remember what it felt like to be there with you. For the first time, his guard slipped. His expression softened, the corners of his mouth lifting. He cupped my cheek, gentle again. I knew you'd come back to me, he said. I let him think it. I let him believe every word. Over the next few days, I kept building the illusion. I asked him about the house, our garden, the smell of the kitchen, the way the sunlight fell in through the window. I listened as he talked, filing away every detail. Sometimes, when he looked at me with that mixture of devotion and control, I forced myself to smile back. I said things I didn't mean. I said I missed him, that I wanted us to start over, that I wanted to sleep beside him again, in our own bed. And it worked. Each day he grew softer, more relaxed. His touches became warmer, less careful. He started humming again while he cooked. Sometimes he even laughed. And then one evening as we ate dinner, he looked up and said it like it was a reward. In a few days, he said, we'll go home. Everything's almost ready. I smiled, careful to keep my hands steady on the table. Inside, my heart was racing. Because finally, after all the quiet pretending and small lies, I was getting exactly what I wanted. I was going home. When Ryan finally brought me home, something inside me whispered that the word didn't fit. The house looked perfect, polished, white walls and glossy floors, but sterile, almost like a showroom. It smelled of new paint, not of life. No trace of a woman who painted for a living. No warmth, no chaos, no smell of turpentine or coffee stains on the counter. I tried to smile anyway, to be grateful. He wheeled me inside, careful with my broken leg. His touch was gentle, almost rehearsed. What do you think? He asked. It's beautiful, I said. My voice sounded far away. Something about the house felt off, but I couldn't explain what. It was like looking at a photo of your childhood home, familiar, but flat, missing something essential. Ryan seemed relieved by my answer. You'll remember everything soon. We'll make new memories if we have to. He kissed the top of my head, and for a moment I caught the reflection of his smile in the window. Too bright, too certain. That night, we slept in the same bed for the first time. I didn't protest. I told myself that maybe if I allowed a bit of closeness, maybe if I leaned into the life he said we had, something inside me would click. His arm wrapped around me. It felt heavy, not comforting. But I stayed still. When he whispered goodnight, I whispered it back. The next morning, he went to make breakfast, and I used the chance to explore. The house was spacious, but eerily quiet. No photos on the walls, no personal things, only perfectly arranged furniture. I rolled into the hallway and stopped by a closed door, locked with an old brass keyhole. What's in there? I asked when Ryan appeared with coffee. He froze for a second too long. Just old stuff. You lost the key months ago, remember? I'll fix it later. He smiled again, that soft, patient smile, and handed me my cup. Nothing important, I promise. But there was something about the way his eyes avoided mine that made my stomach twist. Over the next few days, I tried to search quietly, never staying too long in one place. I opened drawers, closets, even kitchen cabinets. Everything was spotless, as if someone had just moved in or just finished cleaning for a showing. No dust, no clutter, no trace of me. I told myself I was being paranoid. Ryan had been kind, patient even. He brought me flowers, cooked for me, helped me move around. There were no signs of danger, no raised voice, no cruelty, and yet every instinct screamed that I shouldn't trust him. Maybe it was the way he always took his phone with him, or how he flinched when I mentioned wanting to paint again, or that he never let me open the curtains fully. He told me I didn't have a laptop, that I'd always preferred painting to screens. When I asked if I could have a phone, he said, "You broke it when you fell. I'll buy a new one soon." But soon never came. Ryan said he worked in real estate. He left every morning, neatly dressed, promising to bring something special for dinner. When the door closed behind him, silence wrapped around me so thick I could hear my heartbeat. That's when I started exploring again. The studio was at the back of the house. My wheelchair barely fit through the doorway, but I managed to push myself in. The air was colder there, heavy with the faint metallic scent of old paint. Sunlight leaked through half-closed blinds, landing on a few canvases leaning against the wall. I turned one over and froze. It was a portrait, not finished, but the emotion in it hit me like a punch. A woman's face, hollow eyes, mouth twisted in fear. The brushstrokes were chaotic, desperate. If that was my work, then I hadn't been happy. I reached for the bookshelf beside the easel. It was filled with art books, sketch pads, a few magazines. One of the larger books had something sticking out, a yellowed corner of an envelope. Curiosity overruled fear. I pulled it out and saw my own name written on it. My handwriting. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet. "Nora, if you're reading this, it means you forgot. Or he made you forget. Never come back to him. Don't believe that he'll change. You know that he won't." The words blurred before my eyes. My throat closed, and I could barely breathe. My chest hurt as if the air had turned into stone. It was my handwriting. There was no doubt. And yet, I was here, in this house, with him. I folded the letter and hid it back inside the book, shoving it deep behind others. My heart raced so fast that I thought he'd hear it the moment he walked in. When Ryan came home that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read a cookbook. He kissed my cheek. "How was your day?" "Quiet," I said softly. "I painted a little." He smiled, but there was a flicker of something else in his eyes. A quick calculation, as if he were scanning my face for signs of rebellion. "That's good," he said. "You're getting better every day." I smiled back. My hands trembled slightly, but I hid them under the table. He didn't notice the faint paint smudge on my sleeve. Or maybe he did, and chose to say nothing. That night, as he fell asleep beside me, I lay still and stared at the ceiling. The letter burned in my mind, word by word. Never come back to him. I didn't know yet what it meant. But for the first time since waking up in that hospital bed, I was sure of one thing. Whatever Ryan Alden was keeping from me, I was going to find out, even if it killed me. The following days blurred together like brushstrokes mixed with too much water. Pale, undefined, almost transparent. I woke up, drank coffee, smiled when Ryan smiled, and pretended I wasn't slowly losing my mind. Every night when he went to bed, I stared at that locked door. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to open it. During the day when he was gone, I tried to find the key. I checked every drawer, every pocket of his jackets when he wasn't home. Nothing. I even tried to talk to someone, anyone, outside. But the street was quiet, lifeless. The houses nearby seemed empty, their blinds always closed. Once, I saw an old man walking his dog, but by the time I reached the window and waved, he was already gone. My wheelchair made it impossible to sneak out, and the front steps were too high. I was trapped in a perfect, beautiful cage. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. The following days stretched endlessly, pale and lifeless. I woke up, sipped coffee, smiled at Ryan when he smiled, and pretended I wasn't slowly losing myself inside this house. Every day, I watched that locked door. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to open it. When Ryan left for work that morning, carefully dressed, briefcase in hand, his smile soft and calm, I finally had the chance. The door loomed at the end of the hallway, its brass keyhole gleaming in the sunlight. My hands shook as I slid my fingers into the pockets of his coat, which I had tucked behind a chair earlier. A bunch of keys waited there. I grabbed them, my heart hammering. 5 keys in total, The first two didn't fit. The third stuck halfway. The fourth clicked perfectly. I froze, holding my breath. The door opened to reveal a small, sunlit room. Dust floated in the air, but it wasn't the dust of forgotten things. Everything was too neat, too new, almost staged. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with boxes, albums, and folders. My eyes immediately fell on a laptop sitting on the table. Beside it were framed photos. Some of me, some of people I didn't recognize. One frame had a small card taped to it. Neat handwriting I immediately recognized. To my mom. I held it in my hands, the paper warm with familiarity, and my chest constricted. But Ryan had told me my parents were long gone. I turned to the laptop. When I pressed the power button, a greeting appeared. "Hi, Nora." Without thinking, I typed 0804. The password worked. My pulse jumped. I had remembered something, a fragment at least. Joy flickered inside me, small but bright. I opened the browser. Emails, messages, social media. Everything was still open, still waiting. I hesitated, then clicked the latest message in my inbox. It was from Maya Rivers. "How could you be so cruel? We were friends for decades. I'll never forgive you. Best of luck, Nora." My stomach twisted. Cruel? I scrolled up and found an avalanche of words. Angry, sharp, full of venom. The messages written by me were harsh, insulting, even cruel. "You're pathetic, Maya. You copied my painting and called it yours. Don't ever speak to me again. You always wanted to be me. You're a loser." I stared at the words, numb. They didn't belong to me, not to the woman I felt I was now. My heart pounded, but I kept scrolling, trying to make sense of it. Then a new message appeared. Clara Jensen. "Nora, please, why did you block me? I tried to call. Maya didn't steal anything, you know that. Please talk to me." I hesitated, then typed back, my fingers trembling. "I lost my memory. I don't remember you or what happened. Do you know where I live? Please come." Almost instantly, a reply appeared. "I'm shocked, Nora. I'll come right now. I'm on my way." I froze. My heart thudded so hard I thought I might pass out. Clara knew where I lived. She was coming. She could reach me before Ryan returned. I shoved the laptop back onto the table, heart racing, and pushed myself out of the room. I locked the door carefully and returned the keys to the coat's hidden pocket, feeling a surge of triumph mixed with terror. The rest of the afternoon dragged by in a haze. Every noise, a car door, footsteps on the pavement, made me tense. And then, finally, the house was quiet. Ryan hadn't returned yet. For the first time in weeks, I felt the tiniest spark of hope. I didn't know exactly what would happen next. Clara might arrive and see me, and I'd have to explain everything, my lost memory, the locked room, the letters, the messages. But she was my link to the life Ryan had tried to erase, and for the first time, I realized something terrifying. If I wanted to survive this, I couldn't wait. I couldn't depend on Ryan. He wasn't coming back this afternoon, and maybe, just maybe, that was the best thing that could happen. I wheeled myself to the window, glancing at the street. The sunlight was soft, diffused by the blinds. I could see a shadow moving in the distance, a figure on the road. My heart leapt. Clara. I took a deep breath, feeling the cast on my leg throb with the effort of anticipation. I couldn't waste a second. Whatever happened next would decide everything. For weeks, Ryan had controlled me, curated my memories, shaped the narrative of my life. But now I had a choice. The letter, the laptop, the photos, they were mine. Pieces of a puzzle he had tried to hide. And now, someone from my past was coming. Someone who might finally help me put it together. I gripped the wheelchair arms tightly and wheeled to the front door, every nerve on fire. When I reached for the lock, I paused, listening for Ryan's key in the door. There was silence. No footsteps. No sound from the hallway. For the first time in months, I felt alone in a way that wasn't terrifying. It was liberating. Clara was coming, and I was ready. The moment the doorbell rang, my heart leapt. I hadn't felt this much hope in weeks. I wheeled myself to the door, hands trembling. I could see her immediately. Clara, my friend, the one who had always been a lifeline, smiling nervously, eyes scanning the street before they landed on me. "Nora!" she called, rushing forward. I didn't even think. I let her hug me, and the warmth of her arms around my shoulders was like sunlight breaking through clouds I hadn't realized were there. "What happened?" she asked, holding me at arm's length now to look at me. "Why are you in a wheelchair? Is it him?" I swallowed hard. "Do you mean Ryan? I don't remember. I don't know. Did he do something like this before?" Her eyes widened and she took a step closer. "You never told us, but we know. We tried to save you, but you didn't want to listen. You stopped communicating with everyone in your life, friends, family, everyone. Some people were blamed for things they didn't do, others just ignored by you. We came to the house a few weeks ago, but no one was there." She hesitated, voice dropping to a whisper, but sharp with anger and fear. "Ryan, he's always been abusive. You weren't happy with him. There were constant fights, Nora. You weren't happy. We were worried sick." The words hit me like a shockwave. My stomach twisted. The sterile walls of the house, the locked doors, the silence, the isolation. It all made sense now. I wasn't imagining my unease. I wasn't being paranoid. "Clara, please help me. I feel trapped," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, my hands gripping the wheelchair arms as if they were the only thing keeping me upright. Clara looked at me, eyes resolute. "We'll get you out, Nora. We'll leave this house together." I felt hope blossom inside me for the first time in weeks. But the hope shattered the moment the front door slammed open. Ryan's voice echoed immediately through the house, sharp and furious. "What the hell is going on here?" he shouted, his eyes locked onto Clara and me. "What are you doing?" Clara wheeled in front of me instinctively, her arms raised. "Ryan, back off, we're leaving, now!" "No!" he yelled, his face twisted. "Don't listen to her, Nora. Don't believe Clara, believe me. I won't!" I screamed, my chest tightening. Something inside me snapped, the fog that had clouded my memory, the confusion, the fear. Everything returned in a flood. I remembered everything. The years of small, subtle control, the jealousy he masked as love, the isolation from friends, the anger at my success, the fights that left me shaking, the way he demanded I stay at home, keep silent, obey, the fear that he was always watching, always waiting, and that night, the fall, not an accident. The fury in his eyes as he pushed me down the stairs, the pain, the fear, the betrayal. I remember, I said, voice shaking but clear. I remember everything, Ryan. All the fights, all the jealousy, all the lies. I remember that I wanted to leave you forever. I can't stay with you anymore. You were angry, controlling. You threw me down the stairs. He froze, his face contorting. Rage, confusion, fear all mixed in one expression. We're leaving, I said, finally. If you don't let us go, we'll call the police. Ryan lunged toward me. His hands reached for me, for the wheelchair, for control, anything. His voice roared, furious, trembling with rage. You can't. You belong to me, Nora. Don't believe them. Don't leave me. Clara moved instantly, positioning herself between us. Back off, she shouted, her voice firm but shaking. Hands off her, Ryan, now! I clutched the wheelchair tightly, heart hammering, feeling every instinct screaming, get away, fight back, survive. Ryan tried to push past her, his hands gripping my arms. I flinched but didn't scream. I had to stay strong to be heard. Ryan, stop! This is over. I remember. I know everything. You can't control me anymore. His face went red, then pale, and he froze for a heartbeat. His fists clenched, shaking, and for a second I thought he might strike. But then, a siren in the distance. Someone had called the police. Ryan's eyes darted wildly. He tried to reach me again, but Clara blocked him, holding me steady, whispering, It's okay, I've got you. I whispered back, almost to myself, almost as a promise. It's over, Ryan. I'm free now. The front door burst open. Officers rushed in, authoritative and loud, shouting commands. Ryan tried to protest, tried to grab me again, but they quickly restrained him. He screamed my name, begged, raged, but it didn't matter. I sat in my wheelchair, trembling, and finally let myself breathe. Clara held my hands, pressing them into mine as though to anchor me to reality. "You're okay now, Nora. You're safe." I looked at her, tears streaming down my face. I can't believe it. I finally remember all of it." She nodded, her own eyes wet. "I know, Nora, I know. You're so strong. You made it out. You survived him." Ryan was led out, screaming and pleading, but the doors closed behind him. The house, once sterile and suffocating, seemed to exhale. Light spilled through the windows differently now, not trapped or false, but real. I finally allowed myself to lean back, to relax, to let the tears come freely. Clara hugged me tightly, whispering, "It's over. You're free." And in that moment, I understood the full weight of the truth I had uncovered. I had chosen life. I had chosen freedom. I had remembered who I was. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt hope bloom, real, warm, unstoppable. Today is April 8th, my birthday. I've always loved this day. The quiet promise of spring, the sense of beginnings. But today it feels different. Today it feels like a rebirth. I unlocked my laptop this morning with a smile that was both triumphant and tender. 0804. 4 digits that carried more weight than any key could hold. 4 digits that reminded me I had survived. That reminded me I had remembered. That reminded me I had finally taken back my life. I smiled at the screen and at the memory of that locked room, the boxes, the letters, the photos. That small, sterile house that had tried to cage me, suffocate me, keep me from being myself, it no longer had power over me. The past few months have been a whirlwind. Clara stayed with me for a while after the police took Ryan away. She has been my anchor, my angel, my savior, in every sense of the word. I'm not sure I could have made it without her steady presence, her unwavering courage. I owe her more than I can ever say. I've reunited with my family, something I thought would never happen. Ryan had tried to convince me that my parents were gone, that my relatives didn't care, that I was better off alone, surrounded only by him. But it wasn't true. They had waited, silently worried, confused by my sudden withdrawal, my long silence. And now, seeing them, hearing their voices, touching their hands, it feels like coming home in every sense. Maya reached out too. For a long time I had believed his lies, that she had betrayed me, stolen my work, that I couldn't trust her. But that wasn't reality. We've repaired our friendship, tentatively at first, then fully. I see her now and I remember every laugh we shared, every conversation that stretched into the night. She's not just my friend. She's my sister in spirit, my collaborator, my safe place. Art has become my salvation, too. The studio is alive again. Brushes, paint, canvases, all waiting for me. The silence of creation is no longer oppressive. It's a conversation, a celebration, a reclaiming of the life Ryan tried to erase. Every stroke I lay on canvas now feels like a declaration. I exist. I am free. I am here. Ryan left the city weeks ago. I hear he's somewhere far away. Part of me still tenses when the house is too quiet, when the wind rattles the windows, when the shadows lengthen. The fear doesn't vanish overnight, but I can manage it. I will manage it. Every day it gets a little easier. Every day the house, the city, the world feels more like mine. And today, my birthday, I let myself feel the fullness of life. I let myself remember the terror, the sadness, the isolation, and then the triumph, the relief, the joy. I let myself acknowledge the woman I was, the woman I am, and the woman I am becoming. Clara is laughing at my side, as always. She's showing me a gift she bought, teasing me about my stubbornness, about the time I insisted on painting the whole studio pink. I lean on her shoulder, letting the warmth of her presence remind me that love, true love, is gentle, protective, and real. Maya is here too, dropping in with flowers, with her usual sarcasm that somehow always makes me laugh. She hugs me tight, and I realize I can trust her. I really can. I'm a successful artist. I'm loved. I'm surrounded by people who care about me. I've survived. And yet, sometimes, in the quiet, when the house is still and the shadows stretch long across the walls, I feel a flicker of that old fear. A reminder that the world can be cruel, that people can be controlling, that danger can be closer than you think. But the flicker is small now, dim, easily extinguished by light, laughter, art, love. I will handle it. I know I will. I close the laptop, looking around my studio, at the canvases waiting to be painted, at the sunlight spilling across the floor. I breathe in deeply and let myself feel the fullness of this day, my birthday, my rebirth, my freedom. Ryan is gone. He no longer holds power over me. I remember everything and I choose everything, my friends, my family, my art, my life, and today I am alive, truly alive.